Welcome back to Have You Heard, our social media podcast here at The Social Shepherd. I'm with Jack today,
Hello.
and my name's Zoe, for those of you that don't know, and we are the co-founders here at the agency. One thing we thought would be interesting to discuss today is briefs. And, obviously we get a lot of briefs come through the agency, some that we take, some that we don't. Jack manages all our new business. But we get such a range of briefs. You begin to learn very quickly what a good brief looks like. And we probably have quite a good idea of, if we were a client, how would we run the new business process to get the best responses from the agencies. So I guess we kick off with what you're the first person that sees them. So what are your pet peeves whenever you first get a brief or speak to a new business lead?
Yeah, there can often be some very common questions that always appear, or we always ask about. One being budget. It often gets left out of a brief, which is quite painful. Not that we're, trying to get as much money out of a brand as possible.
No, but you need to understand, if you don't know what it is and you spend 2 weeks with 70 members on it, and then they're going to say, oh, we're going to give you $5,000 a month.
Yeah. And you went really big on the sort of strategy and really, went for it and pitched in for something that was, 2, 3, 4 times their actual budget. It looks as if we've missed the mark, but actually we've not been given that information to know where we should be sitting and what their expectation is.
Whenever we ask the question of what's the budget, we almost feel a bit I don't know how to phrase it. You feel a bit oh, you're going to annoy the person by asking that question, but it is purely because we will base our response around that. And particularly if we're talking about paid media, we need to understand how much you're going to be investing in it, because the budget, the strategy that we'll suggest is very much aligned to the budget that you have available. If you only have a small pot of budget and you've got a steady stream of traffic coming on board, then we may suggest putting more of that budget into remarketing than we would into top board, depending on what the objective is, but we need to understand what the budget is.
Yeah, no, definitely. And I think for us, especially on the organic, social, creative, social media management side of things, we can work with brands on a small scale. We can, we have such a wide range of people, brands that we work with and budgets that we work with. The scope, and obviously naturally massively changes based on the budget and what we can input and the sort of value that we can provide.
And it's we have day rates, that's paid bills percentage, influencer majority of the time bills percentage, but those are so content production and organic social is billed hourly. So we have our day rates that we need to stick to be able to deliver an operationally sound level of profit as a business, so to be able to operate. And if there's only a certain amount of budget, and say you're saying that you're going to offer to pay us $3,000 a month or something like that, but you're expecting posts every single day across 4 different platforms, and we're going to have to create all of the content, we're not going to be able to match your expectation for that budget. So I think it should almost be treated as the first thing that you kind of talk about is that can you do what we need you to do with the budget that we have available to us?
Yeah, 100%. I guess second to that, in from when I receive a brief, is sort of timelines and expectations from brands of when we can actually deliver this. Sometimes they're we expect to receive the pitch in 7 days' time, but we're expecting this large strategy. I think sometimes they forget that we're not just waiting on our hands.
Just waiting.
Briefs come along. Yeah. Okay, we're all going to start working now on this brief. There's so much that goes on. We get everyone involved in the sort of proposal, as an agency should do. It shouldn't just be left to the new business team because they're not the experts in their field. We should be bringing on sort of key people from each team.
And so that means you've either got to move work around or it's difficult.
And as a sort of busy agency, we've got people, they've scheduled their times out. They know what they're working on, and that following week, we have to have a process behind it to enable us to, we really want to wow brands.
If we're going to take a brief, we're going to do it well.
And
And
if
I think
not,
that's one thing like we've really learned. Like if you're
Yeah.
going to do something, do it right.
yeah,
And so, yeah.
if we're given a week, we would either ask for an extension or we're going to go, it's not possible because we're not going to be able to put our best foot forward, and we want to represent ourselves in the best light possible and not
Yeah.
give ourselves every chance of winning it, because it does take.
It
They
takes
do
so much
take
effort
so
to
much
not win
time.
it is upsetting. So,
But not that, just like all the time that you put in to then, to force it within a week.
Yeah.
And then it's like, well, you didn't hit the mark here, here, and here. It's like, well, we probably would have done if we given the actual full time.
I mean, I think we've had pitch processes that have taken 6 months. We've had pitch processes that have taken 2 weeks. I think it depends on the budget is a massive one and the expectations of it. But I think, to me, if I could like craft my like dream pitch process, it would be initial meeting with yourself or a new business representative at an agency.
Yeah.
We then decide if we're a good fit and we want to continue that conversation forward.
Yeah.
Then we would look to receive sort of a top line briefing document of what they're looking for as an agency. We would then sit down internally, get the relevant directors involved at that stage, and then discuss any questions that we might have off the back of that. Then we would go into a chemistry session, which would have directors, managers, execs, anyone that we think is going to end up working on that should we win it in that session, to ask the client questions, feedback, have them ask us questions, and ultimately just make sure everyone gets on and that it all makes sense. We're speaking the same language. And then the client after that would traditionally say, yes, we'd like you to move forward. Here is a brief to respond to for the pitch. Please come back with costings for BAU, costings for campaign, campaign idea or strategy that helps us solve this problem, and what you would do differently or whatever it kind of looks like. And then you, depending on the size, like you're going to need a minimum of 2 weeks to get that done. Yeah. Like to get it done well, taking into consideration that there's going to be multiple people.
Even 2 weeks is too short. If
we've had 2 months before to do a response to pitch, and it was still tight because we did like an 800 page deck or something for that one. Yeah. But yeah, and then once you've done that, then ideally you would pitch face to face, and then you would come away from that, and then. I always think like after you've done a pitch and you've presented your strategy and ideas, then a follow-up call or meeting.
A brand should have many questions off the back of that to further clarify your approach and way of thinking, because yes, we deliver that pitch in 2 hours, but naturally they're going to come away with so many questions. Yeah, want to hopefully explore that further.
And then the people quite often like will come to us and be like, so yeah, we'll do the pitch this month and then you'll start working the next month. And I'm okay, but what about procurement? And for those bigger businesses, contracting can take like 3 months. Now that's not to say that we won't start working in those 3 months. Like we do need some time to get the right resource in place and make sure it's done, but we'll sometimes work with like a letter of intent at that stage to make sure we can start onboarding. But like I would say, if you're a brand that's sort of looking to spend a significant amount of money, you've got a procurement team, you've got a whole process that you're following, you need to be reaching out to agencies a minimum of 5 months ahead of time of actually wanting to go live.
Yeah. And I think a short timeline doesn't give them enough time to make the decision. Yeah. You're also going to have agencies drop out of the process that might have actually been the perfect fit because you've sort of given them too little time and they've said, look, that's not possible. You're going to get people that are potentially more desperate for that piece of work and they're just going to bang out the proposal in 1 week rather than an agency that's really going to take the care and time over it. And equally, that brand needs to have time to make the decision, not just a day to go, yes. Yeah. Like there's multiple people on their side that are making the decision ultimately. And it should be a well-rounded decision, not rushed on their side if they're signing a 12-month contract.
Yeah. I think another interesting one is we've had a few clients come on board where they've been like, you don't need to pitch for us. Just come and work for us. But we've now decided that even if they say that, we're going to pitch because it just means that we're like
or have further conversations with, because we've had it where I've had conversations and I've not actually been at the stage where other members of the team have been a part of those, and then I turn around and think, we go, oh, we've just won this client.
And they're like, where did that come from?
Yeah, and they haven't got any context. I think definitely moving forward, it's important that everyone meets both sides, even if it is no pitches.
I love it that people want to work with us without us having to pitch. Like, that's amazing. But I think it
sets the expectation and like working relationship forward.
And I think it's important, and it gives our team a chance to like sink their teeth into a brand and get to understand it before they even start formally onboarding.
Yeah.
So yeah. Any other pet peeves? Anything that gets left out of briefs or anything else?
I'm trying to think now.
I can't think of anything. I mean, the main thing is like timing and like making sure all the relevant information is there. Objectives, that is one like really key one, not making it clear. And sometimes like we get briefs come through, and I don't mean this in like any like negative way towards anyone, but it's clear that the person that's written the brief doesn't really know what they're talking about.
Yeah, they might not be in they might be in procurement and they're not actually in social.
Yeah, and I would rather like in those situations I've actually turned around and been like, well, we kind of need to rewrite this brief for them off the back of their questions. And I would rather a brand come to us and be like, to be honest, we're not specialists in this area. Can you help us? And that will more so happen whenever they're onboarding an agency for the first time. Whereas it's a little bit different if someone's gone to like tender and they're with a current agency.
Yeah.
And that in itself, I think if we're pitching against a current incumbent agency, I think it's important that we're aware of that too. And has that pitch come out of just a procurement need to retender every 3 years, or are you actually unhappy with that agency and looking to move out of choice?
Yeah.
And I think that's really, really important for us to know as well, because we need to weigh up the likelihood of us actually moving forward with something, particularly if we're going to spend hours and hours and hours, and we spend a long time on our pitches. The team really go full out on them. So it's important that we've got all the information to hand.
Yeah, I think that wraps up
nicely.
So thank you very much for watching. Please do subscribe and follow along, because we'll be posting many more of these podcasts. Thank you very much.
Thank you.